I'm just going to do this and hope that works. Okay, good. So obviously, let's just start. Obviously, I don't have the most structure for the Valorant coaching yet,
Of
um,
course.
because as you might know, this is the first time that I've actually done any coaching in Valorant. Well, I mean, I did
Mm-hmm.
have a session with Zephyro, I guess, but
Zephyro.
yeah, he's another person on the server, but that wasn't like an official session. It was
Like how
just
this is.
yeah, it was him just kind of whining in Discord, and then I was like, okay, I'm just
Squeaky
gonna
wheel, I
try my
guess.
best to squeaky wheel gets the grease, yeah.
Yeah,
But
so.
nah, honestly, he deserved it, dude. He has he has played the game not the game. He has had like a very significant amount of coaching sessions before. Like he's been a loyal customer in
Ah, okay.
Overwatch. So I was like, if he's playing Valorant, I can't just let him down. I feel like I need to help him. Yeah,
Yeah.
I need to log into Insights real quick because obviously
That's
there are
good, yeah.
no
Hopefully I'm
replays.
becoming something of a loyal customer here soon.
Well, first we need to focus on becoming good at Valorant. I think that would be
Ugh.
a pretty solid goal. So you said that you had two replays for me to look at.
I do, and I want to start off this session with prefacing a few things before we get started.
Mm-hmm.
So, as you watch me play, the
Yes.
first and most important thing I want you to understand, of course, this is going to be a great roast session, and I love it, but I have no basis or background or anything basics in this game at all.
Mm-hmm.
Like, other than like some FPS uh, standards that you do, crosshair placement, walking here, walking there, stuff like that. I have
Mm-hmm.
nothing as far as like utility wise, corners, things like that. So if you see something, you're like, okay, might be new because you have no basis in it. And
Okay.
then second, um, the my aim is atrocious because I don't know how to use recoil yet. I can generally get to the person,
I
but
want
then
to.
after
Okay,
that,
okay. I'm gonna interrupt you right there. You shouldn't really. You shouldn't really base your aim too much about the recoil in the game to begin with. Like the actual situations where you're just pretty much you want to. The only time where you would actually spray properly is when either someone is right fucking in front of you, or when
mhm,
you're dealing with multiple enemies and you need to just spray transfer from enemy to enemy. So you start on one enemy and then you go to the next and you go to
I've
the
seen
next.
that. Yeah.
Um, Although that is also a lot more difficult in Valorant because the spray patterns are a lot more unpredictable than they are in Counter Strike. But that aside,
Yeah.
generally speaking, your aim shouldn't really be to just spray people down.
No, no, no,
If
no, no.
ideally you won't really last very long, especially at higher ratings that way. So it's good to just practice it properly from the start and try to kill them within your first or two bullets.
And that's what I was talking about. So like I was telling you before, and you may or may not notice in some of these videos, my the crosshair placement sometimes is a little like, what are you doing? And sometimes
Mm-hmm.
it's like, all right, this is not bad. The issue that I have is I usually how do I put it? Like I played Siege for about 4 years, right? So you know how fast or how slow somebody can come around a corner and what you need to do to be able to adjust to that. Here I don't have that. So to
Mm-hmm.
compensate until I can get comfortable with it is at least for now aiming center mass. So I have to be able to
Mm,
control. I know what you're gonna say, but
no,
in order
no,
for me to at
well,
least start.
no, no,
Oh,
no,
go
no,
ahead,
no,
go ahead.
no, no, no. Listen, whatever you're about to say literally doesn't matter.
Oh boy.
Just don't stop
Okay.
with the center mass. So here's the thing. Since you've played Overwatch before, I'm gonna try to draw a lot of comparisons to Overwatch. Okay,
Okay.
but Overwatch is a very very transparent and straightforward game mechanically.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Valorant or tech shooters like that aren't. They're a little bit more hardcore and a lot more
Oh God.
punishing. And
Yeah.
you are going to hate yourself beyond belief if you start with the shit habits right now. Okay.
Okay.
I know that it's very, very frustrating to try and go for headshots and to just not hit them. But the way that you improve mechanically in Valorant isn't to just say, oh, well, I guess, I'm just going to go for center mass, and if I get a headshot, I'm lucky. It's much better to get a headshot, but intentional. Even if it means that, 90% of the time you're just going to lose fights because of aim. That's just kind of how it goes. So obviously on top of mechanics, you also want to train everything else. You want to know how to peek people properly. You want to know how to scout information, how to listen for footsteps, how to rotate properly. Like all of those things are important. But the most important thing is that from the get-go, you just want to do things as correctly as humanly possible. So if you start practicing something like aiming for center mass, which unless you're using like the Bucky, and even with the Bucky you want to aim slightly higher than that, it's just a habit that you're not going to be able to break eventually if you put too much time into it. And it is going to fuck you so tremendously. It is indescribable with regular adjectives. So
I'll sit with the headshots then,
yeah, just don't even get into that habit, trust me. Like you need to, this game is fucking brutal. You just need to go for headshots. There's literally no way around it.
Yes.
But yeah, I think
Oh, and the last thing for me, just to wrap my preface, there's 6 points that the reason why I bought 2 hours is today's because to get a little bit basis, there's 6 points that I really want to touch on today. You probably will anyway, but there's 6 points I really want to go over today. How to play default, either attack or defense, how to hold an angle, if it's even smart to hold an angle, how to push a point, how to retake a point, how to use utility, and how to understand the economy. My two characters are Sova and Sage. I understand their abilities the best as far as just me. So those are 2 characters I want to focus on.
Okay.
And then here's the first video.
Okay. Just give me that list, because I think here's the best thing we can do. So since you got 2 hours, I think the best way that we can split this is, so you wrote down those 6 things. I think the best thing that we can do is I am going to share my screen.
Okay.
And I'm gonna open up Photoshop so I have something to draw with.
And once we get there, this is the second video.
Actually, let me just open up Paint. I think that's gonna be a little simpler.
One has great quality. Oh, so ignore the black bar on the right side of the screen. I fixed that this morning. I forgot that my OBS was set to my second monitor, which is a widescreen.
Oh, my main monitor is widescreen as well. So like the way your
monitor is widescreen.
Yeah, I play on a 100 hertz 21:9.
You play on a 100 hertz?
Yes.
Huh. I'd have expected you to be like 144 to 260.
If I was tryharding, yes. I used to have a 240 hertz when I was playing Valorant.
Fair enough.
When I was playing Overwatch. The reason I switched is because eventually I got into like coaching and content creation full time, and yes.
That makes more sense, yeah.
But yeah, you know, maybe I'll upgrade to 240 hertz again in a while. So let me screen share some fucking Paint. Can you see Paint?
Sure can.
Okay, very nice. These lines are probably a little bit... I'm sorry?
I'm going to put you full screen so I can...
Okay. Ooh. There we go. So, let's get some gaming done.
Okay, let's do it.
There we go. Okay, so again, I'm kind of winging this because I obviously, you know, there's a reason why these sessions aren't like officially for sale yet, because I haven't prepared the same structure that I have for Overwatch. But we can just go through it. So, how to play default. Obviously, this is split into defense and into attack. We're gonna start with attack first. So, especially in Valorant, okay, so utility was also already extremely important in Counter-Strike, but it is even more so important in Valorant. And some of the strongest characters in the game, right, which are arguably, you know, Sage and Cypher, the reason that they are so incredibly strong is because their utility is so ridiculously annoying to deal with. Right.
Yeah.
So playing default on attack side means positioning yourself in a way that accomplishes 2 things. First of all, you want to make sure that the enemy team can't just directly read which side you are committing to. So if everyone is going to one side, pretty much the only reason that should ever happen is if everyone just rushes the point, for example, during an eco. But the worst thing that can happen is if 5 people go to a side, they make themselves known, right? So the enemy team knows that 5 people are at that side, and then they just sit around and do fuck all while the enemy team can rotate. Because the way that the game is balanced, that games like this are balanced. So attackers and defenders both have a few inherent advantages, right? So the first advantage that attackers have is that they have the element of surprise, right? They're the ones who get to decide when to peek and where to peek and what they want to do. And the second advantage that they have is that the defenders are split up across the map, right? So obviously going, onto a point is kind of tough, especially if you're thinking of like split B going through main through that shitty little garage is pretty tough. But obviously, since they're spread out, it's going to be, 3, 4, 5 people going in a side against maybe 2, maximum 3 people defending, unless they stack, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of how the balance, I guess, works. But the problem is, it is also, and this is again another defender's advantage, it is much easier for defenders to hold because they can choose what angles to hold, right? So obviously the attackers need to check every single fucking angle, and sometimes in Valorant especially, certain angles are so ridiculously deep that
Oh my god, yeah.
it can be pretty tough. And also utility in this game is, generally speaking, like defensive utility tends to be more impactful from my experience than offensive utility. So a sage slow orb, for example, is like the amount a sage
It's way
alone
better on
can
defense,
just
yeah.
can waste so much time, right? So in that case, it doesn't really matter if your breach has 2 flashbangs and whatnot. If there's a slow field, pushing through there is kind of insane. And also for retakes, right? Because it's much if you manage to attack and you manage to get the bomb down, the enemy team has to retake. You want to make sure that they don't really have any utility for that, so that they're focused on just out aiming you, which is obviously going to be tough because now you're in the defensive position. So playing default on attack means that you kind of want to spread yourself out around the map slightly. For 2 reasons. So first of all, for 3 reasons. So first of all, you don't give away which side you're attacking because you guys are pressuring all entry points essentially.
Okay.
Number 2, it baits out utility because obviously if the sage, even if you're alone, the sage is probably still going to commit slow orbs because how is she supposed to know how many people there are, right? Maybe everyone is slow walking, so you're baiting out a lot of utility, right? And especially like in lower ranks, people tend to blow all of their utility right at the start of the round. Like if you're on attack and you go to the side where the raise is, she's gonna blow all of her nades and her little bot and everything out. And then number 3, and this is also very, very valuable, especially in lower ranks, is something called map control. So one of the worst things that can happen is that you're attacking and you're committing to a side, and again, maybe your team is a little indecisive and you guys are kind of chilling, and then all of a sudden someone on the enemy team pushes up behind you. Especially in lower ratings, okay, the magical reality of the situation is that people are ridiculously impatient. So they tend to be, a little bit over aggressive at times. So if we think about Bind, the teleporter map, if you guys are committing to an A take, usually people get a little bit greedy and then they start pushing through B like hookah, and then they go through B markets, and all of a sudden they're behind you. And that is very difficult because let's say you are let's say you're committing, let's say the enemy team have, I'm going to give you a very, very drastic example, okay? But let's say the enemy team has Omen, Jet, Raze, Cypher, and Sage, right? So let's say that you're playing Bind, so the teleporter map, there's point A and point B, and you guys default, and you see that on point A, there are Cypher tripwires and fields and Sage slow fields, and she's walled it off, and the Raze is spamming nades, right? In that situation, you probably want to go, A doesn't really look like the best place to be, right? Maybe we should just go B. Because, there's an Omen and the Jet, and obviously it is much easier to attack into those two, right? But if everyone has been chilling at A and no one has taken up a default position on like B hookah or B long, rotating to B can actually be very, very dangerous. Because on one hand, you want to go there very, very fast, but because the faster you go there, the less time you give the enemy team to rotate and set up, right? Or to even catch on that you're rotating.
Yeah.
But if no one has been holding that area, you can't really go through there fast, because if someone on the enemy team, has a judge and you run past the corner, your entire team is gonna be dead on that rotate, right?
You're watching me? Because it happens to me almost every game.
Well, there you go. So that's why it's very important to just get into the habit, right? And now this doesn't mean going on solo adventures like all the time and just peeking like an idiot. If you are alone somewhere, right? If you're holding, if you're trying to maintain map control of that B site on your own, then obviously you also want to play a little bit more careful, because no one can trade for you. So trading kills, by the way, in case you're a little perplexed why I have paint open and I'm not using it, I feel like a lot of this is just going to be me talking. So one thing that is very, very important, actually, let me just do something. I guess we might as well, let me just open up a map of bind so I have something to like actually use. There we go, good. Can you see that?
I sure can.
Okay, very nice. I'm gonna use like, I don't know, bright green. So what I was meaning, right, is everyone in the example earlier, everyone is just kind of chilling over here. Maybe one guy is over here, right? And then the enemy team just pushes through market, and all of a sudden you guys, and then they hide in that corner. You go over here, and he just goes pew pew. Now,
just blasted.
oh my god. Okay, there we go. Now, when you're holding a site alone, right? So let's just say again, your team is doing like weird stuff. I don't know, maybe one guy is pushing showers, 3 people are chilling at A, right? Obviously, in that case, you don't want to go with them because there's already a bunch of people there. You want to try to maintain B control as best as you can. Obviously, you're going to be a little vulnerable if someone on the enemy team decides to push through long, right? But generally speaking, long is usually, like, it's kind of a very, very long rotate, which is why it's called long. So if, you need to choose between holding 2 areas, every point in this game usually has like a long area to attack from and a short area. That's also why they're usually called long and short. Same thing here, right? So this is long and then this is short. If you have the choice, you want to go for short because it is easier for the enemy team to quickly rotate there. So if someone on B realizes that it's on A, they're probably not going to go all the way fucking around here. They're probably just going to try to quickly push here, get in a corner, and then try to do something, right? Now, when you're standing alone, you want to play, you don't want to just play super duper aggressive. So it's very, very important that, again, if your teammates are chilling here and you're chilling here, you don't just push in super duper aggressively, because you want to make sure that every single time you push in aggressively, even if you die because you suck, you still want your team to be able to get something off of it. So that means either space, right? So essentially that, you're almost being used as bait by your teammates, I guess. And also ideally giving them the opportunity to trade kills, because if you die, then your teammates will know where the enemy is positioned, and ideally they'll be able to peek at the same time. So, the enemy is being peeked by 2 people at once, right? So you want to try and get into as many situations as possible where when you peek, it's either with someone else or it's with the element of surprise, right? So instead of pushing there, if you're just trying to hold that space, right, you don't even have to do anything. You can literally just chill, like around the corner. You can chill over here, or you can chill on the left side, and then you jiggle peek that corner, right? So you don't just want to stand right in front of the door.
Yeah.
Right? You just chill around that corner. You just chill around the corner, right? And then every 3 seconds or so, you just peek. Right? And there's all of this action going on in A. So again, right, the biggest advantage that you have an attacker, even if your mechanics and reaction time are kind of garbage, is the element of surprise. So if your teammates are causing a lot of action on A, someone on B, especially in lower ranks, is going to be like, hey, I can rotate here. And then all of a sudden, he checks this door and no one is there. And then all of a sudden you peek and, you just have such a big advantage. In that fight, you have peeker's advantage. They're like probably not even looking for you, right? Chances are you're gonna have a good shot at taking that 1v1, right? And even if you die, at least one of your teammates can rotate in order to, do their thing. And yes, even if you get noticed, it usually forces out a lot of utility from the enemy team. Does all of that make
Okay.
sense?
It does, yeah.
Okay, so just make sure, maintain map control, try to apply pressure, make yourself, make it so that your attack isn't very predictable, and try to get as much utility out as possible on the attack. Again, it's kind of just basics, but, basics are better than nothing. Now, in terms of default for defense, so it's pretty much the same thing as attack, just kind of different. How you want to set up on each map in terms of the holds, I can tell you how that is decided, but I don't think it's fully agreed upon yet how you want to perfectly set up. Like, generally
Game's still
speaking,
new, so
you want to take into account how easy it is to retake a point, a site, and how many different ways there are to actually attack. So it's kind of... I'm going to give you a Counter-Strike example just so you kind of get the idea. If we look at Mirage on Counter-Strike, and the terrorists are attacking, there aren't really a lot of strategies that they can actually execute at a higher level of play. Like the majority of strategies that you can do in an echo round as a terrorist on Mirage involve going apps. So I think that's B. Which means that in a situation like that, where it's very likely that the enemy team is going to come B, you ideally want to go B to catch them off guard, right? So some teams go for like 4 people on B and then 1 person on A setup, and if they do decide to go A, everyone can just rotate because the terrorists are attacking they're ecoing, so they don't really have guns, so a retake shouldn't be too difficult, right? So you want to look at how easy it is to retake a point and how likely it is, or like how necessary it is to have that amount of people there, right? So B is generally speaking, so B on bind, for example, is generally speaking easier to hold. Mainly because it's a little bit difficult to explain. See, this is where I need like my sub explanations. It's not that B is easier to hold necessarily. It's that you don't necessarily need as many people on it because it's easier to fall back and then get rotations from your team, if that makes sense.
It does. Okay.
That's why most people, at least from what I've seen, right? Most people tend to send 2 people B and then 3 people A. But again, like it depends, and I'm not going to comment too much on it because strategies haven't really been made up. For all I know, maybe the ultimate meta strategy is going to be having 4 people B and then 1 person A. And it also does depend on the round. It's not like every single round you're always going to send the same amount of people anywhere. Eventually, you'll need to look at the enemy team's economy in order to try and predict what they're going to do, right? So if I see that the enemy team doesn't have money to buy, I'm going to expect that they're probably just going to buy a bunch of shotguns and then try to rush hookah on B. So it is very situational. Eventually, you're going to just have to read what the enemy team is going to do. But generally speaking, the way that you default on defense is you want to, at the start of the round, put yourself into a position that allows you to scout out information. So the best example that I can give on this is, when you're holding on B, it's usually a good idea to start pretty deep in hookah. So right there where the green dot is, because it allows you to very, very easily use either your right ear or your left ear in order to scout where people are, right? So you can very easily call, there's like a lot of steps on my right side and like 1 person stepping on my left side, so I can call, 3 short, 1 long, right? Doesn't have to be super accurate, but at least you can communicate that with your team and you can kind of anticipate. And obviously, if you would hear those footsteps, the correct reaction would be to probably just get the fuck out of there and give your team time to rotate.
Okay.
But it's pretty much the same thing on every single round. You pretty much always want to just put yourself into a position where you can listen for sound cues. Now, it's very important to not just fully depend on those cues, right? Because sometimes the enemy team is just going to surprise you, right? And they're going to slow walk around the corner and all of a sudden you're dead. Again, that's kind of an outplay because obviously it's also kind of dangerous to slow walk around the corner, but it's just important to kind of be ready for everything. So if you don't hear any steps on B, right? But there's nothing on A either. They're not using any abilities on A. Then you're probably playing against a team that isn't like super super stupid, and they're playing it a little bit more tactical. In that case, you want to kind of play the same way that you maintained map control on attack, where you just want to find a good angle to hold, right? So you can hold like hookah right here, and you can just kind of jiggle peek and just kind of scout this area every couple seconds. That way it's very non-committal. Like even if you see them, you don't have to commit to the fight. You can just quickly back off just to scout them out. But one of the most important things is you really, really want to avoid taking fights in this game without knowledge of where the enemies are and how many of them are.
Yeah.
Does that make
sense?
It
the hard way. I'm learning it the hard way right now.
Yeah. A lot of fights people are losing, mainly because, the enemy team knows where they are, but they don't know where the enemy is. Like a good example of this is people who play characters with flashbangs. So if you're playing Breach or if you're playing Phoenix, your abilities are actually very, very telegraphed. So in a lot of situations, it is actually much, much better to peek without using those abilities. Right? Like Breach's flashbang especially is really very good when you're like flashing for a teammate because they can capitalize on it immediately. But if you're in like a 1v1 as Breach, sometimes unless you 100% know that it's going to full flash them and you 100% know where they are, it's better to just not use the flash at all and try to capitalize on the element of surprise. Because if you flash a corner, what is the enemy team going to do? They're probably all going to look at that fucking corner and you're gonna get mowed down. Mm-hmm. Right? But yeah, so try to just play, kind of smart on defense. The most important thing, one thing to understand is you want to avoid trading kills on defense. On attack, getting into a 4v4 situation is actually better than being in a 5v5. Because the enemy team is going to be more spread out, like across the map. They can't just stack aside. So generally speaking, it is better to trade for a kill. Like if you just go in, get a kill, and then die, technically that is worth it. Obviously only technically, in practicality you want to be a little bit more useful than that.
Just one kill.
Yeah. Whereas on defense you want to avoid that as much as possible. So on defense you don't want to always just mindlessly push or peek a bunch of people or whatnot. Now I mentioned earlier the thing about map control and how realizing, because if the enemy team isn't playing defaults, then you can again, you can push and try to take map control away from them. Although, again, that is kind of, from my experience, more of a newbie habit, because it's something that is very, very difficult to do at higher levels of play. Because people are, again, usually they have a lurker, they have someone who's kind of sitting back and watching those flanks. So, generally speaking, and again, this is generally speaking, if you are on B and, the enemy team is committing to A, unless you 100% know that all 5 people are on A and they didn't leave anyone behind to check the flank, you should just rotate over CT spawn. Because it is like the advantage of consistently being able to rotate without dying on the way there generally outweighs the element of surprise that you have. And usually, again, against a good team, they're going to, even if they're set up on the spot, they're going to check all of the entrances anyways, right? So if they plant on A, someone is going to check short, someone is going to check showers, someone is probably, checking fucking
sitting in
heaven, mm-hmm. Right? Maybe someone is chilling in U-Haul even, maybe someone is chilling, I don't fucking know. So they're probably going to set up, which is going to make it significantly more difficult for you to get a proper rotation, a flank rotation. So when rotating, speed is everything. You really just want to rotate as quickly as possible to not give the enemy team any time to properly set up. Although with rotations, it's important that you don't get baited. So I mentioned earlier how, if the enemy team is playing kind of good, they're going to play defaults, and then it's going to be a lot more difficult to tell. The only time that you literally rotate instantly is if spike is down, right? Which again happens very often in lower rating. Some enemy on attack is going to peek freaking short, and then he's going to get sniped from heaven, and all of a sudden spike is down here. When you see the spike, that's when you just rotate pretty much immediately.
Yeah.
And you just want to hold the spike.
Yeah, these which you're explaining to me now are pretty not basic, but these are
Mm-hmm.
those kind of things are things I learned in Siege, because it's kind of the same attacker defender type thing.
Mm-hmm.
Always rotate when you got the bomb, i.e. spike. Definitely don't want to ever trade on defense because that's just stupid. Stuff like that. Yeah, I definitely know. Just good to hear it again though.
Do you have any questions about any of that?
Nope.
For Valorant specific?
Nope. Just my main question is how do you hold an angle in Valorant? Because it's way different than Siege. I can't describe the number of times, but I've been holding an angle, which I thought was a pretty tight one, and then somebody comes around, ding, and I'm like, okay, like I just don't know how to hold an angle. If you even should be holding an angle, how that plays out. So, like for example, you're right there at A, you're at Tetris, right? You're watching showers and you're watching short.
Tetris is there. Kind of a shit position. Why would you be at Tetris?
I don't know. I've watched videos of people saying that's the best spot to sit if you want to be able to watch showers and short.
Yeah, but the only time you would go Tetris is if you have to watch both showers and short. Okay. Like, usually if you have a teammate short, then you just want to commit to watching showers, so you can go like, you can watch showers, you know, either from this cubby or from heaven. The problem with Tetris, or in general, the problem with positions where you're covering two spots is that you're kind of trapped out in the open. Because, you know, if the enemy team is standing here, you know, what the heck are you supposed to do? Like, you're kind of stuck. So it's a little bit risky. Not a bad position, but just kind of situational, I guess. Okay. It's usually better to just take safer positions that give you a proper escape route.
So that's probably what's my issue then, not having positions where I can. So that answers my question.
Like it's good to surprise the enemies, but it's just important to be conscious of like the risk and reward of each of your positions. Now you talked about how to hold an angle. So obviously that's a little bit complicated. Do you know the fundamentals of like angle geometry?
Not in this game, nowhere near.
What do you mean in this game? What does it have to do with the game?
Everything. To me, I guess. Like I said, holding an angle in this game is way different than holding an angle in Siege. I keep using that because that's the best game I have that's somewhat tactical like this. And I know you don't have much experience in Siege, but like I said, I can hold a tiny pixel peak in Siege and be able to get multi-headshots. Not at a time, but yeah, I can do it. In this game, when you hold an angle in this one, for some reason it appears to, it shows more of your body than what you're expecting it to. Not just your shoulders, but also like more than half of you. And I don't understand how when I'm holding an angle, I'm at a disadvantage for some reason. Because every time I hold an angle, I'm always the one that gets killed from the person peeking around the corner. Even if they don't know I'm there, for some reason I'm always the one getting killed and I don't know why.
But that's the problem. Like, what do you mean? So first of all, it's always better to assume that the enemy knows you're there. Because like over time, as you play the game more, people are just going to learn the most common spots and they're going to pre-aim them. So you should always be under the assumption. That's what off angles are for. Are you familiar with off angles?
I know what they are. I don't know where they are in this game.
It's not about where they are. It's not like set spots. It's just thinking about where people would normally hold, and then you hold slightly further away from that. Like if we make a little test room.
So they can't pre-fire you. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. You know, if I'm just gonna, you know, ioStux the map designer.
Love it so far.
I'm just gonna create, you know, like the top spots. If an attacker is pushing in from here, you know, the top spots are usually, you know, somewhere around the corners or maybe like right next to those corners, right? Those are kind of the common spots. And what an off angle is when you're in a position that the enemy doesn't necessarily expect. So what the enemy does is, you know, when they push in, they ideally want to, let's say they're not worried about this. Maybe this has been mollied or like breach exploded or something. So this area is clear. So he pretty much only has to worry about like what's going on this line and what's going on over here. Okay. Right. So he's gonna stand here, right around the corner, and then he's gonna peek like this first in order to peek what's over here in this corner, right? And then he clears it, and then he's gonna keep walking. Right? He's gonna look in this direction and he's gonna strafe like this in order to check what's in this corner. Right? An off angle is when you catch them on that rotation, essentially. So if we draw this again, it's, you know, if you stand over here, for example, because then they check this corner and then they swipe over because they want to check this corner, and their crosshair is pre-placed for this position, but all of a sudden you're standing over here. That's what an off angle essentially is, because you're familiar with peeker's advantage, I'm assuming.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So obviously, peeker's advantage, just, it's kind of a thing that exists, not really much you can do about it. The way to compensate for that as a defender is that as a defender, you know where they are peeking. So it is no secret that when you know where someone is peeking, you'll be able to react to them, much quicker, because you don't need to flick and you know exactly where they're going to be coming from, right? The problem is that when the attacker pre-aims, then he isn't really at a disadvantage because he also knows where you could be, right? But also he has peeker's advantage, right? So the way that you want to get around that is by using angle advantage and by using off angles, or even by peeking yourself. So when you're holding an angle, you don't necessarily just want to stand wherever you are, unless you have a very obvious off angle and you're going to be able to catch the enemy off guard. Then you can just hold the angle like it's nothing. Generally speaking, just jiggle peeking the angle is usually better, because that way you also benefit from peeker's advantage, because now you're also peeking. And it's also also a little bit safer. So if you're, again, I'm going to make a very, very simple example. This is like a corner, right? So are you familiar with angle advantage?
No. Maybe.
Okay,
Maybe.
Angle advantage is, that's just kind of how geometry works, where this is called the fulcrum, right? So a fulcrum is,
okay, I understand. Yes, so the point where you rotate when you can see someone before you can see their shoulder before, and you can't see. Yeah, okay.
Whoever is closer to the fulcrum is going to be more exposed than the person who's standing away.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if you're this guy, you're standing literally right next to the corner, and then someone peeks you, of course they're going to be able to react much faster because they see you significantly earlier, right? So the first rule of thumb is you always want to try to hold as far away from a corner as possible. Not the only exception, but one exception is if you're dealing with an op, when you know that there's an op, right? So if we go back to the example from Bind, then you
peek out fast. Yeah.
Exactly, you just go here and then you can swing wide.
Yeah.
Because in that 1v1, either he misses his shot or he doesn't. So you just, it's not really about yourself, what you're doing. It's just about making it as difficult for him. Yeah. But generally speaking, when you're holding an angle, first of all, try to get into the habit of just not permanently holding it, unless you know that you have an off angle. If you know you have an off angle, then you can just hold it.
Okay.
Right? Because you know that you'll have the element of surprise. But if you're playing a default spot, if you're playing a position that people are very likely to pre-aim, right? In that situation, it is better to not just stand there, because the enemy team is just going to, be able to react extremely fast, but rather just peek that spot repeatedly.
Okay.
Okay.
That makes more sense.
Other than that, I mean, again, the enemy is going to have peeker's advantage, and when you're playing against people that can check corners properly, obviously it is going to be difficult, right? But keep in mind that when you're on defense, your goal shouldn't even necessarily be to just go for duels like that and win them. Your goal is really just to stall as long as humanly possible. Because another advantage that the defenders have is time advantage.
It's time.
They're not the ones playing against the clock. So even just in some rounds, just staying alive for fucking ever, and the enemy team only has 20 seconds left, that alone can win you the round.
Causing them to make mistakes.
Exactly.
Make them rush.
Exactly. So, yeah, I guess, does that answer the question? You want to abuse angle advantage, so you want to stay as far away from the corner as possible. You don't always just want to hold at the most common spots. You want to try to hold a little bit to the side, off angle, so people don't expect you. And in certain situations, just jiggle peek in order to get information and in order to get the jump on people and surprise them. Another big part of it actually is just game sense in general. So knowing when people push, right?
Yes.
So when you're holding hookah and you hear steps, with enough game sense, you'll know exactly when the enemy team is going to peek and where he's gonna be looking.
Okay.
Right. Obviously, again, kind of advanced, and it takes a lot of experience to do that consistently.
Playing the game in time, yeah.
Eventually, you can just read the enemies kind of like an open book.
Okay. Yeah, I can accept that. Yeah, it's the jiggle peeking is going to take time for me, I guess, because I'm not used to being able to just like wait around a corner, check, wait around a corner, check,
I
just
mean,
something
you
like that.
have,
So
so
that's
you need to keep in mind, right? You have the angle advantage, right? If you're holding, heaven
no. I mean, I'm
on
just saying you're
A.
right. I'm just saying like it's gonna take me time to do it, like learn how to do it. That's all. Like
Oh yeah,
you're right. I'm
I
still
just want to
agreeing.
emphasize because
Oh, okay.
if you're holding heaven, right, and they're holding showers, right, they're
Mm-hmm.
already at such a huge disadvantage because they're like you're gonna be able to see them so early. So if you also give yourself the advantage, like that's kind of how this game works. It is a lot about aim, right? It is a lot more aim dependent, I guess, than Overwatch. Not that aim in this game is like more difficult than Overwatch. Aiming in Overwatch is 10,000 times more difficult because people
So many
just
things going on.
fucking zip all over the place,
Yeah.
above, below. There's no movement acceleration.
Yep.
So aiming in Valorant is technically easier, right? But also kind of not, because it's also a lot about reaction time. So reaction time in Overwatch is close to irrelevant for most characters, whereas in Valorant, reaction time is pretty darn important. So again,
Mine is shitty. My reaction time is so shitty.
So I mean, again, mine isn't really that great either. If you play smart, then you make reaction time a lot less of a factor, right?
Okay.
So does that answer the question? Can we move on to the next one?
Yes.
How to push a point. Honestly, this is kind of simple. I kind of explained it in the
Yeah,
default
I'll say you
already.
already explained that one. We can go down to utility if you want to, because you already explained all that.
Just to kind of, I mean, how to push a point. How to retake is pretty much the same thing as pushing a point. There really isn't that big of a difference, except that the enemies will have less utility and they're going to be at different spots. But yeah, again, pushing a point, you really just want to gain map control, apply pressure, take one corner at a time, and the most important thing about this game really, and kind of a mantra that you need to follow, is let the enemy team give themselves away. Like, people are super ADHD in this game. If they're just giving away their position for free, that is going to make your push much simpler. Okay. How to retake utility. So utility is very, very, very character specific. So as you mentioned with Sage, generally speaking, there isn't really a whole lot here that I can tell you that wouldn't already be explained in some random Reddit post showing you like different Sage walled spots and whatnot. I can help you with the general mantra. So the main goal behind Sage is obviously isolating spots and delaying as much as possible on defense. So on attack, isolating spots means that if you are attacking, let's say, split B, and you guys are going via main, then you want to use your wall in order to wall off heaven, or like the right side when you leave. Wait, I can just open up the map again, right? That's fucking blind.
Yeah, which one's...
Split is the one that's like the city one.
Okay.
The city one, but yeah.
It has like the sewer area and that really wide open middle
Yeah.
area.
Okay. Split Valorant. So if you are, let me just copy paste Reno this. So if you are attacking from B main, so down here, right? Isolation would be you using your Sage wall right there, so that your teammates only have to check like these spots. And they can ignore like all of these spots over here for now, right? So you can kind of clear this area and then this area and then this area and then this area and this. So you can kind of go one by one. So that's angle isolation. On defense, it's kind of straightforward. You really use your abilities to stall them for as long as possible. You still want to use them as late as possible. So you don't just want to burn them right away. Like, you want to make sure that you're not just getting baited, right? Even if one enemy makes it through, if you can just split off the rest of his team, it's completely fine. Sova's main goal is just gathering as much information as possible, which is why Sova is kind of not OP, but like very, very strong, especially on attack compared to someone like Cypher. Again, like, you can look for random arrow spots, but I think what's more useful is just understanding kind of the mantra behind those abilities. Generally speaking, your drone as Sova is a little bit more of a clutch utility. The main reason being that your drone is unavoidable. So with your arrow, the enemy can
Okay.
the with your drone, the enemy with your arrow, the enemy can obviously shoot it, but that doesn't necessarily give their position away. You know that they're in that general vicinity, but you don't know exactly which spot they are holding. Or the enemy can just quickly hide around a corner, and then your arrow can give you a false sense of security. Because it didn't pick up an enemy, so you're like, oh, okay, no one is there, but maybe someone is there, they were just hiding. Whereas with your drone, that can't happen. With your drone, you can check all of those spots manually, and if they shoot it, it's gonna be pretty apparent where they shot it from, and even you'll still know their info. So that's why, like, it's really strong for retakes. It's really strong for rotations. Your drone is not something that you just want to use. Like, the worst thing you can do is at the start of the round, on defense, you just use your drone immediately and you fly in, and then you see someone. Like, that isn't really super duper high value. It's much better if you save it for the retake, where you don't know where they actually are set up. And it's better to just use your arrow at the start of the round. In terms of attack, it's kind of similar, although you can use your drone a lot more aggressively there.
Helping
you don't
your
necessarily
teammates in,
exactly.
Like that.
You don't necessarily exactly. And again, information is key. Obviously, sometimes you're going to be gathering information, your teammates aren't going to act upon it, or maybe you don't have an opportunity to do so yourself. But just having that information is really, really, really valuable. Like, when you go over your VODs, you really want to isolate all of the engagements that you took where you didn't know an enemy was there.
Okay.
Where you got surprised. If you get surprised most of the time, then you need to play more around gathering information and playing around your team and playing around your abilities a little bit more.
Okay. Yeah, you're gonna notice it a lot in these videos too. I get very surprised, and a lot of times, when I'm peeking, when I'm holding, or just in any general, I do get surprised quite a bit. Some of it's map knowledge. I mean, I'm still trying to learn the maps as fast as possible. But a lot of it, is because I don't know where anybody could be, where they might be sitting, anything. So
now, number 6, economy. So you just want me to give you a rundown of economy?
So there's a YouTube channel called The War Owl. Have you heard of it?
Yes. Yeah, of course.
Okay. Yeah, I've watched his CS:GO one a long time ago. It's very informative. Then I watched his Valorant one. With economy, I have a basic understanding, but I don't know how to use it to my advantage. So, for example, you win the pistol round, you get a bunch of money, stuff like that. After you win the pistol round, what's your next move? And then how do you know when to save, when to do an eco, stuff like that is what I don't know. But as far as understanding the money side, knowing what a full buy is, 3,900, that's a full buy in this. Yes. I know that much, but
it's not to clarify, 3,900 is not a full buy. That's just a weapon buy. A full buy is also if you can get all utility generally.
Okay.
But yeah, so I guess to answer your initial question, what you buy depends on what equipment the enemy team is going to have, and a little bit of a gamble and confidence at times as well. So to give that initial example, let's say the enemy team, you win the pistol round, right? So now it's the next round and you want to kind of figure out what to do. Mm-hmm. If I am on defense, for example, I usually get a ghost and some utility first round. Some people get, armor and utility. But again, it really just depends on how confident you are and what you're playing against. Both have their merits to them, whether you want to go ghost or whether you want to go classic armor. One of the advantages of Ghost is that when I win pistol round with Ghost, sometimes in the second round I don't actually upgrade my gun. So I keep the Ghost. I just buy full armor and maybe a couple abilities. That way I can get a proper buy next round. And the thing is that in the second round, so after the pistol round is over, the other team very rarely forces. Because they want to buy, so force buying is when you buy in a way that means that if you lose this round, you won't be able to buy next round.
Perfect. That's what that's called. I need to understand that because
force buying is essentially just saying force buy is essentially just saying, okay, you know what, fuck it, just force buy whatever happens next round. It's essentially what you do where if you lose this round, it's kind of over anyways.
Yeah.
So a force buy is really just to kind of surprise the enemy and catch them off guard. So the enemy team is unlikely to force buy in the second round. Again, in lower ratings, people are going to force buy a lot more frequently. So
Yeah,
the
I've noticed
strategy,
that.
the strategy of so against lower elo players, I wouldn't keep my ghost. Against lower elo players, I would just I still might play ghost in the first round just because the one taps are nice if they don't have armor. And I'm confident in my aim. But I would always upgrade my weapon in the second round because I know that the enemy team is very likely to just force buy and all of a sudden they're going to rush at me with like stingers and sheriffs and whatnot, and I don't really want to face that with a ghost. But if I'm playing higher elo, then I know that they want to match our full by third round. So instead of getting a Spectre, I just keep the Ghost because most likely they're going to be rushing us with like frenzies and stuff. And I feel pretty confident, full armor Ghost. Like the thing is, if they're not buying in the second round, usually they don't have like, sometimes they don't even have proper armor. So the Ghost is still a one shot,
Yeah.
right? And if someone on the enemy team buys a Sheriff, but they don't have any armor and you just one tap them with a Ghost, that's kind of a win.
They've lost all their money, pretty much.
Another advantage is that the Spectre that you would buy is usually something that you would only keep for that round because you want to upgrade in the third round. So if you play against a good team, let's say that you win pistol round and then in the next one you play Spectre with armor and the enemy team doesn't buy, right? Even if you win that round, in the next round both teams will be able to buy, and you don't really want to play Spectre against a team with Vandals and Phantoms. So you need to upgrade, but you're essentially just throwing your weapon away.
There we
Whereas
go. Okay.
this way, you're keeping your Ghost for 2 rounds, and then
Okay.
when you upgrade, even when you upgrade, you still technically keep your Ghost, so that money doesn't go anywhere. Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah, that's okay. That was what I was looking for. Then I guess with the economy, the next question would be is weapon choice. So I almost always go for Spectre because I heard that was just the SMG you should go for. Is there any time I should go for anything?
What round do you mean? So
I only usually buy the Spectre on the second round, like you said. If I win, if I don't win, I try not to buy it. But if I see my team doing it, I will do it because I don't want to be the only one doing it, and I want to have some impact with my team. I don't know if that's right or not.
so the way you need to think about money, think about each round kind of like a little gamble.
Okay.
Right? And how much you buy is like your investment. It's your bet. So you want to invest a lot of money in rounds that you feel are going to go very well. So for example, even if your team, like one good situation to force buy is if the enemy team doesn't have any ultimates and you have a lot of ultimates. In that situation, it can be a good idea to force buy. Like it's still a gamble, but your chances of winning that round are fairly high, so that money can be very good, well invested, right?
Okay.
Or if the enemy team, if you know that they also have to eco, right? If you're on defense and you know that the enemy team is just going to eco rush you, then you can also just eco yourself. Like you can just go for a Bucky or a Spectre or something to save money for utility. But generally speaking, you want to invest money when you feel like you're going to get a good return. So if your entire team is playing Sheriffs, then you probably don't want to buy an op. Because that's, the chances of you winning that round and keeping that weapon are obviously very, very low. So it's better to, even if you could theoretically buy, right? It might just be better to maybe go with something a little bit more, cheesy, I guess. It's also very situational based on what you're playing. So on defense, for example, the Bucky can be a very, very good economic choice, right? Because it's very easy to even beat out Vandals and Phantoms with the Bucky.
That close.
If you're close, if you peek properly, etc. Whereas on attack, the Bucky can be a little bit rough at times, and it's usually better to go for either a Sheriff if you trust in the one taps, or just going for a Stinger or something. But yeah, think of your money investment as like how much faith you put into the round. And the main important thing really is if your teammates can buy next round, you want to make sure that you can buy next round as well. So the worst thing that you can do is if all of your teammates are saving and you're just force buying like a Bulldog or something, and then next round they're all full buying and you're running around with like with a Judge or with a Spectre. Obviously, that's ideally what you want to avoid. Another thing that's important is when you should, buy utility, when you should buy like a proper gun, because That's kind of the niche that the Guardian has. So theoretically speaking, the Guardian isn't actually that inferior to something like the Vandal if you land your first shot. Like, they can both just one tap at all ranges, right? But obviously, you know, when it comes to spraying people down and consistency, it's much more difficult with the Guardian. Like, the Vandal is just a little easier to use, or the Phantom. But the Guardian is cheaper. So the choice is, do I get the Guardian, and then I have 200 extra that I can use for like a flashbang or something? Or do I get the Vandal? It's more expensive, but you know, it's better in terms of gunplay. And that is, again, situational based on how much value you put into those abilities, right?
Okay.
So for example, if I know that my team, you know, that we're just going to all rush C, then as Breach, I put a lot more value on utility. So even if I could buy a Vandal or a Phantom, you know, maybe I'll just get a Bulldog, but instead, you know, fully kit out on flashbangs. Because I know that that's going to be a lot more useful than, you know, because worst case, one of my teammates dies, I just pick up, you know, their gun. And it's not like you always lose a 1v1 Bulldog versus Vandal. Like, you can still win those. So, as a general rule of thumb...
No, you answered it. You answered it perfect.
Getting
I don't want you to feel like you didn't.
Oh, no. Getting a full weapon and full shields should be your priority, except when an ability is just ridiculously high impact. So something like a Sage Wall on defense, like if you're on split, just being able to wall off middle is so high impact that even if you have a shit weapon, you know, it's usually worth it. But again, that's something you get with experience.
Okay. Then I guess so we can go into the videos now. My last question would be, how much should I save after I buy to know I'm not force buying? Should I always have, like, I need to always save like 500, like always just have it, or 1,000, for example? How much do I need to leave after a buy?
You just, in the store, you can just see how much money you'll have next round.
I know. How much should I keep for the next round?
Ideally,
even if I full buy. When I want a full buy, how much should I keep? Well, full buy for me for now is just the 3,900.
Yeah. So what's the question?
So if I want a full buy, and it's not good, I don't want to force spin or force buy. How much should I have banked so I'm not force buying? Another full buy or less?
Either you can get another full buy next round, or you can't. Like, it's not really something you can decide. So, you know, if your entire team is buying weapons, then you should buy a weapon too if you can. If you lose that round, then obviously next round you're gonna probably have to eco because you don't have any money, right? That's just kind of how the cookie crumbles, right? On the other hand, if your teammates aren't buying, let's say your teammates are just going in with, you know, shorties and, you know, maybe a stinger or something. In that case, the only time that, you know, like, even then, even if you could, you don't really want to buy it properly. You just want to make sure that you'll have 3,900 for the next round. Sometimes, if I am very, very rich, you can buy like a full gun. But if you can buy a full gun while still having enough money to buy like a full gun next round, you know, chances are that you aren't actually that poorly off economically in the first place. But generally speaking, you just want to invest as much money as you have faith into the round, right? The worst thing that can happen is if your teammates are saving to buy next round and you're not. Right, the worst thing is when 4 people on your team are all running around with Vandals and Phantoms and Ops, and you're running around with a Spectre. Like, that should pretty much never happen. Sometimes you'll get into a situation where you can buy, but your teammates can't, but it shouldn't be the other way around.
Okay. Let me. Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay. Then, I guess I can just do it here.
There we go. Okay. That's perfect.
Okay, so let's look at some gameplay.
Ooh, the roast session has begun.
Oof. Okay. Also, given the time, I think we'll only be able to go over one of the games, but I think that's fine, given that we've talked so much theory.
Yeah, you've helped me. Yeah, at least give me all of that, so I can at least try to start applying some of that to the gameplay. So that should help somewhat.
Very nice. Okay. Oh, your recording is like Major League messed up.
Yeah, so one of the videos is I had it for the widescreen, but I play on a regular. So yeah.
It's okay. I think we'll be able to kind of make it work. Okay. As long as I can see the game, we're good. Okay, let me go back.
Yeah.
What did you buy?
Okay. You can't see it, okay. So I know I started one of the recordings a little late, so. It's the first round, it's like, no, it's the, okay. So this is gonna look very, this is gonna look very awkward as Cypher. I probably never see me use any of his utility because I just don't know when and how to use it. I know what it does.
Yeah, so
but...
this is what you want to avoid. So especially like the pistol round is very, very important because the pistol round kind of counts as 2 rounds, if that makes sense. Like if you win the pistol round, right? Then in the next round, the enemy team is gonna have to save again, and you're gonna have guns. Does that make sense?
So it almost guarantees you 2 rounds. Gotcha.
Exactly. So
okay.
The advantage that you have in the second round after winning pistol round is so fucking huge that the second round is like, you know, you should bank on it being like, obviously again the enemy team can come back and you can feed, but usually you want to value the pistol round very, very highly. That means that you want to avoid, in most situations, you want to avoid not buying completely down. Right? You have a certain amount of money and you want to try and use that money as best as you can. So it looks like you bought a ghost here, but the problem is you didn't really get any abilities, and that isn't really super duper hot.
Yeah.
You really want to try. So what I would do here, right? You can get the ghost, but if you get the ghost, then try to at least get a tripwire and one of your cages. Or you go with light shields, and then you can get a tripwire and you can get 2 cages, right? Depending on which one you value more. At a higher level, going for light shields and then all of your abilities as Cypher is usually the better play. Because, you know, if the enemy team buys armor, then the ghost isn't a one-tap anyway, so what's the difference?
Yeah.
And just not being able to get one-tapped is a pretty significant advantage most of the time. And again, that utility is just really important. Like, you might think that, oh, Cypher is defense hero anyways, you know, I don't really need my abilities on attack, but that isn't entirely true. So, for example, you can use your cage to completely block off certain side plans. Like, if your team is going on B, then you can use your cage to smoke off the left side so your team can get on the point without just being obliterated by 2 sides at once, right?
Okay.
Or you can use your trap wires. So I mentioned earlier about map control, right? Do you remember how I said earlier, you want to default in a way that allows you to control all areas of the map? But what happens, right? What happens if you know all of your teammates go C here, right? If all of your teammates go C here, and you want to default, so maybe you're going to the window, right? You want to make sure that no one pushes middle, but now you're completely exposed from A long. Right, you're in the window. What happens when an enemy pushes through A long? No one is checking it. All of a sudden, you run out of window, and there's an enemy, and you're dead. Right. So your tripwires are essentially like additional players. Right. So even if your entire team decides to just run one spot like idiots in the pistol round, you can hold multiple. Like, you can maintain a very significant amount of map control with those tripwires. So it's very important that you put a lot of emphasis on your abilities, even if it might not be like immediately intuitive how to use them on that particular round.
Okay.
Okay. But let's look at some actual gameplay now. So this is much slower paced than Overwatch, so there's probably going to be a lot more silence. Yeah, see, like, this is exactly what I mean. Do you see how this is kind of open?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. Let's just imagine you got 2 tripwires and light armor. Then you would have been able to put a tripwire here on C, and one over here, and then your team can take control of middle. That looks like a penis. I'm sorry. Your team can take control of middle, and not have to worry about anyone pushing from C or A. But like, now you always have people breathing down your neck, which is like hella annoying. Okay.
Yeah. That's okay.
No, right here. So this is just crosshair placement, like this shot right here.
Mm-hmm.
You're just like, do you see how you're kind of just spamming your shots?
Yeah,
Don't spam your shots like this, and just pray that you're going to get a lucky headshot. Okay.
Okay.
First of all, aim higher. In this game, you need to aim really high because for some reason shots go below your crosshair. I have no idea why.
I've noticed it a little bit.
And
Yeah.
you need to, just from a practice perspective, even. Like, even if you go for a headshot, even if you miss it, like it's still practice, right? But you really need to get into that habit because what you have to understand is that in order to climb, you need to prove that you can succeed against players of a higher skill level.
Yeah.
Right? So maybe your body spray shenanigans are gonna work, you know, in lower ratings.
Body spray shenanigans.
But if you want to actually climb a little bit higher, then you need to find a way that's more consistent, right? So it's not just about killing the enemy, it's about killing them as quickly as possible. And a headshot is the fastest way to kill an enemy. Again, at this range, you'll even have to two-tap him, but he wasn't even really moving, right?
The issue with me is learning, and it's gonna sound really crazy and funny, but learning where head height is in this game for me. That's my issue right now.
Mm-hmm.
I need to learn because of course different games have different head heights for different elevation, different places. Yeah, see, yeah. I went and checked just because, and
Yes.
got
So
absolutely murdered.
yeah. So to go back on the breach, first of all, if you would have, like, if you look at your shots, you landed 2 shots in the leg, 3 in the body. If you would have just, you know, two-tapped him cleanly, I don't even think it needed to be 2 headshots. 1 headshot, 1 body shot would have killed him there, I'm pretty sure. Right? I think he also had shields because he had a classic. So, first of all, you wouldn't have been this low HP against the Jet, right? So the Jet has a Sheriff, which is interesting. But if she doesn't land a headshot, right, if she goes for body shots, right, then, you know, obviously it's going to take her 2 shots, and Sheriff shots are pretty slow. And if she has a Sheriff, she doesn't have any armor, which means that this Jet is one-tappable, but you didn't really have time to react because she killed you with 1 body shot, right? Whereas if you would have killed the breach a bit cleaner, you wouldn't be low HP right now, right? And then number 2, as I mentioned, you know, you have 300 credits. But you didn't use them, and now this is why playing default is important. This is why holding map control is important. No offense, but you just kind of threw the round by dying here.
Yeah.
Right?
There's no offense. That's what that is. That's fine.
So,
Okay.
yeah. I'm going to skip what your
Yeah.
teammates are doing because I
Yeah,
don't think it's
yeah.
like super interesting for you. I mean, actually, they all
No.
just died anyways. Okay. So now this is tough because this is the next round. That's another advantage, by the way, of buying light shields instead of a ghost. So if you go light shields, and again, it is situational, right? Sometimes the ghost is better, but one of the pros for the trapwire, for the light shield, is that you don't have to, like, the weapon doesn't become, like, it allows you to upgrade to a Spectre after winning pistol round much easier, or maybe even a Bulldog if you got enough kills, right? Because you don't have to worry about the ghost not getting any value. Does it make sense?
Kind of. I don't know what you mean by let you upgrade to the Spectre easier. What do you mean? That makes
So
it
if
easier?
you have a ghost and you win the pistol round and then you get a
Oh,
Spectre,
because the amount of money you get for the next
then the
round. Okay,
money
gotcha.
on the ghost was like a little bit wasted.
Gotcha.
Whereas
okay.
with the shields, the only way the shield is wasted is if the enemy team didn't destroy it. But, you know, if you finish pistol round without them even touching your shields, then, you know, GG, well played. You know, it's probably a win anyways.
Okay.
But yeah, so now you don't really have a lot of money. You just want to buy down like a little. It's usually best to just go for, like, to kind of try to surprise them as much as you possibly can. So now here's one thing, right? So this is where you can try to implement strategy. Okay, so here's what I would do on this round. It's always important to look for predictable patterns within the enemy team that you can punish. So what did the enemy team do last round that you can punish this round?
That rotate. The flank. Sorry.
The flank. In general, how did the enemy team play, if you would have to describe it?
Pretty aggressive that last round, pushing out a garage there.
Pretty aggressive, right? So what I would do here is, so there's 2 things you can do. You can either tell your teammates to fuck off from A and go to C or B, and then you put the tripwire down at this door, and you hop into the shop and you buy a shorty, and then you wait until someone pushes, you drop down, and you just insta-kill them. Right? That is strategy number 1. Strategy number 2 is you have 2 tripwires, so you can put 1 tripwire here, and then you can put the second tripwire, like over here, like on if you can see the map.
Yeah, I need to mark.
Like on this entrance, right? And then you can lurk right there, right? Pretty much the only way that you can get surprised there is if someone on the enemy team pushes through window, but you know, we gotta take our gamble sometimes. And then you can kill someone with a shorty here. Or again, if your teammates just don't really, you know, want to do what you're telling them to do, then and they want to go A, you can also go C. Again, just put your tripwire down there, and then you just chill, wait until someone walks by, and then you kill them with the shorty, right? Because this round, like, you need to kind of assume that it's a loss anyways, because you're at such a huge disadvantage. So if you can kill one of them and you can steal their gun, like, that's already pretty nice. Right, if you can, and you get the extra kill reward, and you take them out of the round early, right? Because then you know the person on C long pushes with their nice little specter, runs into the tripwire, you kill them with the shorty. Now the enemy is 1 man down, and you just got a 1600 credit weapon for free, essentially. Right? But instead, what you're doing is you're kind of chilling with your team, which, as I mentioned earlier, right, this is bad because you're making it easy for the enemy team to go on a flank. And you force.
Yeah.
You force. Yeah. Now, this is a problem because if the enemy team, like, look, even your teammate bought a shorty. Because if the enemy team is smart, they're going to be able to fool by next round. And what the fuck are you supposed to do? Run with a ghost into people with vandals?
That's why I asked about economy.
Right.
That's why one of my first questions was that.
So this is already not a very good decision. So there's a lot of things going wrong. So first of all, your flanks are wide open. You guys are essentially just giving up the entire rest of the map for free. Number 2, you're buying a gun when you really shouldn't be buying a gun. And number 3, you have very, very strong abilities like your tripwires, but you're not using them in order to maintain at least some form of map control. Okay? And then look, you even have a specter, and you're letting your teammates run forward, like, you know. But yeah, nice shot. There we go. To be honest, like right here, how did you peek this? Ooh, you slow peek this. You really want to avoid doing this. So the way to properly peek from like a technical standpoint is you just want to fully strafe at full speed.
Okay. Yeah.
So you don't want to peek someone while pressing W or S. That's suicide. You don't want to peek someone while slow walking with shift unless you're checking an off angle. So if we go back to that example on bind on hookah, right? You check the first corner and then you slow walk your way to the second corner. And then shortly before you reach the second corner, you fast walk again. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah.
Okay. But generally speaking, yeah, you want to try to play perpendicular to the corner that you're peeking, to the enemy that you're peeking. So if this is the corner, the enemy is holding right here, you know, you don't want to peek like this, right? You want to peek as perpendicular to them as possible, as full speed, because that way your momentum on their screen is going to be the fastest, right? So right here, again, like the Jet isn't really amazing. This is probably not the most highest elo game in existence.
No,
but,
I'm Iron 3, by the way.
Yeah, so I think that kind of explains why like there are all of these fundamentals. And like the reality of the situation, right? Like I'm gonna be real with you here. The reality of the situation is that in order to get out of Iron, you really just need to learn how to aim. Like there isn't really that much more to it. All of this strategy and holding defaults, it's all correct. But as an Iron player, I wouldn't really worry too much about that right now. Like economy, yes, economy is pretty important because it's kind of just a free advantage and a good thing to understand and good ability usage. But this game isn't like Overwatch where you can just ignore mechanics. Mechanics are like a very, very core part of the game. So it's important to kind of practice those early on and just before you play, going into the practice range, putting on some music, and then just shooting some hard bots for a little while.
Okay.
But yeah, that peak was just very, very risky. Okay. I like this. Never mind. What are you doing? I was just about to give you a compliment, but then you go.
Because it's red and I couldn't get it anywhere, and I didn't want to risk getting in there and getting shot. Something stupid happening to me.
But you can just go into the smoke.
I thought about it. I really did thought about it right there, but I was scared. There's just no confidence. That's all it was. Just no confidence in myself.
Okay, you shouldn't assume that people are going to headshot you through smokes. Okay.
Man, just some weird shit happens to me sometimes, but I know
right
what you
here
mean.
again, like so you already got like what you have to understand is you already got 2 picks.
Hmm.
What does that tell us?
We should be going in to hopefully try to plant, but
Right,
then everybody rotates.
but
They made the
both
call to
of them,
rotate.
right? So both of them were on A.
Hmm.
What is the default setup on Haven?
I'm with you 100%.
Right.
The team wanted to rotate, as you'll see here in just a sec. The team wanted to do that. I believe if this is the round I'm thinking about, that's why.
Right,
Yes, I didn't want to get shot right there, but
right, but you can take control of the site here, right? You killed 2 people on A. If the enemy team has a default setup of 1C, 1 garage, 1B, and then 2A, right? Or honestly, I prefer the setup of having 2 people B because it makes rotations easier, but whatever.
Yeah, I thought it was, yeah.
But it's just in lower elo. Usually people have like 1A long and then 1A short, even though I don't think it's that good. If you kill 2 people here, chances are there's probably no one left. So you should have just put down your camera, quickly check, is someone hell, is someone CT, etc. Just kind of check all of the spots, and then taking control of the side. What your teammates want to do here is kind of not as important, but you need to press W. Like
Okay.
you're just kind of chilling.
Okay.
And that's a
Kinda
problem
reminds me of
because
Bronze Overwatch.
like, do you see how everyone is just waiting right now?
Yeah.
Why are you giving them time to rotate? There's someone on fucking C,
I agree.
right? He's not gonna be here for like 10 years. But look,
Yep. Yep.
where
I
do
know.
you think he came from? He
His
probably
mama's ass. I don't know.
he probably flanked all the way from spawn. Man, if only Cypher had abilities that could prevent flanks like that from happening. Or do you remember what I said earlier about buying a shorty just to catch an enemy flanking?
Yeah.
You could have literally just bought a shorty and then held your own spawn and you would have killed this Phoenix. Do you see how all of these opportunities that you're like missing?
They're passing me by. Yeah.
So that's why information and proper ability usage in this game is so crucial, and not hesitating. Like when you get 2 picks like that, get on the point. But yeah, I mean you're like kind of AFK here. And then you switch to your knife when there's an enemy, which also isn't super duper great. But yeah, like a lot about this low elo is just, I mean, again, like playing with confidence. Like if you get picks, you just go in, you take the spot, and you shouldn't be scared of peeking people.
Yeah. That was
Like-
just a confidence thing there. Me backing
Yeah.
off.
But yeah, again, we can skip what your teammates are doing.
Yeah.
So far, this is all very, very. I mean, I'm honestly impressed that the enemy team just let your team get on B for free. Like that really shouldn't happen.
It's iron. I mean,
But yeah, see, now you can't buy. Do you see how every single one? So you're in fucking iron, and every single one of your teammates can buy, except you.
you said I'm. You said I'm where? What did you say? You said I'm Iran.
You're in iron.
Iron, right? Oh,
iron
yeah.
rank. And your
Iron rank,
teammates,
okay.
your teammates can buy, and you can't. So you're the only one on the team whose economy is so majorly screwed up. It's insane.
Mm-hmm.
So
That's why that was one of the big talking points at the beginning, because I know that I have no knowledge of how to treat that economy.
yeah, like the rule of thumb, round number 3, you want to buy.
Okay.
Okay, again, there are force buy strategies in the second round, but those are like strategies and not really applicable here. But yeah, if the enemy team is smart, they might have weapons, and you're gonna be kind of screwed. Okay, see, right here, you're clearing these corners completely incorrectly. So, first of all, when you push to like check short, do you see how you're running forward? That already isn't very good, because if someone on the enemy team would have picked you there, you would be dead. Like the way that you want to peek it is you want to go around this corner, just strafing to the right, aiming down there, and then you want to cross over to the right side so that you're not exposed from short anymore, and then you can go for another peek like this. Again, you always want to peek at like a 90-degree angle, right? You can go
Okay.
for another peek like this, and at that point you can just assume that short is clear, right? And then you're going to be standing here, and then the enemy is over there, so you want to peek like this, right? On that angle, just to peek them properly. But you peek this kind of by walking forward, which isn't that great. And then right here, did you see how you were walking this way when you were peeking? Look at how you're peeking long. Do you see how you were playing W and A?
Mm-hmm.
You should only press A or D while peeking. You shouldn't even touch your W key. Okay?
Maybe that's why. Okay.
Okay. And yeah, like this peek here is okay. This honestly is just mechanics. Yeah, I mean, again, you're aiming way, way, way too low. But again, that really just comes down to practice. Just go into the practice range and get some work done. And again, where are you going? You're kind of running away.
Somebody's got killed behind us.
Okay.
Yep.
See, again, look, now you're playing with smart. Because the enemy team keeps pushing. Every single round so far, they've been pushing like idiots. And now you're punishing it, which is very good. Again, ideally you should use a tripwire so that you don't have to go there and then he doesn't flank and you've just wasted a bunch of time, right? But this is, like, that's good. Like, that's ideally how you want to play. By the way, right here you did like another slow peek. Again, the only reason you'd want to slow peek like this is when you're checking off angles. But since you're just aiming down long, like you just want to fast peek this. Like quickly run to the side with A, check if someone is there. If not, you just go back. But yeah, again, like keep in mind, slow walking is very situational. The main reason really you want to use it is because it conceals your noise. Okay. Why? Okay, so right here, you see that two of your teammates are already on short. Why would you join them on short instead of taking control of long?
Good question.
Right, so it's always good. It's the same thing in Overwatch where you always want to look for like off angles. Not off angles, just applying pressure from multiple angles. Okay. So this is kind of difficult for your team because they have to check like a lot more positions. Like Heaven, for example. Someone was Heaven, you would have been able to check that from long very, very easily. But yeah, honestly, this round is kind of over. Oh man! If only someone was long!
I knew it was coming! I was just sitting here waiting for it. I was just sitting here waiting for that.
It's almost as if I can predict the future.
Oh man, I was waiting for that.
Like he wasn't even looking at long. You would have just sneaked up on him from behind. But okay, at least you can buy, so that's good. By the way, in terms of Vandal versus Phantom, I'm not going to comment too much on it because A, the game is still kind of early, so it'll probably change anyways. And B, it really just doesn't matter that much at this rating. Like the Phantom is technically, like for your playstyle, honest to God, the Phantom would be better.
Thank God,
because
I like the Phantom better.
Because the Phantom is like, it's just a lot easier to just spray people down center mass with. Whereas in order, like the Vandal is kind of garbage unless you can land first headshots. If you can flick on people's heads, then Vandal is just superior. If you can't, then you want to go Phantom. Which is also why you see the Phantom a lot at like higher level play, because it's just more consistent. You know?
Got it, thank goodness. Okay.
So yeah, like technically right now Phantom is the more consistent weapon. But the Vandal is like 10 times more fun. But yeah, same thing here. So I'm going to stop like repeating the mistakes, but you know, tripwires on the flanks ideally, and you know, setting up defaults, maybe peeking something else.
So if you pause right now,
yeah,
I never once used an ability. Probably my X and maybe E, but everything else no. The rest of the video, it will never happen in this game because I didn't understand how and when. So the rest of the game, C and Q never get used. E may get used once or twice more. X may get used, I think, twice, but that's it.
I mean, yeah, like honestly, your X you mostly use when like after you planted, just to see where they're coming from for the retake. Your E, you use that to scout out new areas, so you know where the enemies are before you peek them. Your cage you use to on defense to stall and on attack to isolate enemies. So for example, it's like just an artificial piece of cover essentially.
Yeah.
And then your tripwires, you use those mostly to cover flanks.
Okay.
Now, what are you doing wrong right here?
I mean, you're doing one thing right. You're splitting off from your team to check that no one is pushing from A, but what's the problem?
I have the spike?
Yes, what happens if you go long and then you die? All of a sudden your teammates all have to run after you.
Mm-hmm.
You want to keep the spike with, ideally, so in this team comp, technically the Sage, because she wants to stand in the back. But you don't want to go on the flank like this and take the spike, because now the spike is over here and look, your teammates have to fucking go out of their way. Right? Now, in terms of this duel, so again, the first problem is there could be an enemy right there, but look at how you pick this corner. You first of all, you slow walk and you peek the corner like this. You don't peek it perpendicular, you peek it while pressing W. Do you see that?
Yeah.
That is terrible. You need to get out of that habit, right? When you're peeking a corner, you hold D or you hold A, and when you see an enemy, like just practice this in the practice range. Okay? Actually, let me try to launch my game real quick. Okay, I'm going to show you like a little drill that you can do.
Thank you very, very much. That's yeah. The mechanics of this game are so alien to me. The whole having to stop, and as you stop, you can shoot, and that first shot is accurate. That it's so hard to get into my mind.
Okay, I'm gonna do this just as a heads up. I'm not going to be good at this. Okay.
Oh yeah, it's fine. It's still a drill. I mean, nobody's perfect. I guess unless you're.
You know what? I'm not going to launch my game. I'm not going to fucking embarrass myself here. Wait, I actually have. I have. I'm just gonna show you a video of me doing it when I was actually warmed up. Oh, dude, there's gonna be music. No music, please. Oh shit. Okay, there we go. Let me just mute this.
You listen to some weird opera?
No weird opera. No weird opera. What was the song? I think it was "She Will Be Loved" by Maroon 5. It's good music.
That song, yeah, it's great music.
Good. Can you see this?
Yes.
So the most important part when practicing. Okay. Can you set this to like fucking. Yes, you can. Okay. Now I just want this to like repeat in the background. So. If you look at this, so this is just the practice range. You set the bots too hard, you enable bot armor, right? All of that is fine. But the thing that's, let me like, there we go. The thing that's important is that when you're practicing, there's two things or three things that you need to prioritize. You need to prioritize accuracy. You need to prioritize speed, because obviously who shoots first is probably going to get the kill first. And you need to focus on your movement. So if you look at this drill, right? Do you see how I'm not just standing still, but I'm actually trying to move in between shots, right? Now, ideally, I've since adjusted it a little bit where I'm like moving more, right? But you want to essentially move, and then when the enemy spawns, you counter strafe, so you press the opposite movement key, right? And then you flick to the head and you shoot.
Whenever they appear.
Yeah, because you don't want to. You don't want to stop moving until you actually have processed where they're positioned. The only time where you stop moving before is when you know where an enemy is, and that's called a pre-fire.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. But other than that, you just want to hold A. You peek around the corner, and you wait until you see an enemy. And once you see an enemy, you let go of A. You press D. You flick to the head. You press left click. In that order, and that ideally as quickly as possible, right? And it's very good to practice in the practice range like this, because you see, I'm not pressing W, I'm not pressing S or anything. I'm just strafing in between shots, resetting my movement, right? Again, not like super realistic. I have like some newer runs, but I don't have them recorded where the movement is a little bit better. But the point is that like this, you want to have muscle memory.
Yeah,
of
this is perfect.
Counter strafing and going for a shot. And usually this is just something that I do for like 30 to 40 minutes each day just to warm up, because I can't really play the game. And so the way that I do it is I do this on hard for like 30 to 40 minutes. And then at the end, I do one run on medium. And if I get at least 28 on medium, that's when I know that I'm warmed up. The reason I do 20, like I can do 30 on medium when I'm fully warmed up, but whether you get 30 sometimes is just based on luck. because sometimes the bots just spawn like at the far edge, and you know,
Way either right or left. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So I usually say if I can get 28 on medium, that's when I'm warm. That's when I'm ready to actually play the game. For yourself, you probably want to aim a little bit lower, because if you warm up until you can hit 28 on medium, you're not going to play the game for a couple months. But we just want to understand that when we're practicing aim, make sure that you incorporate movement, right? That's why shit like Kovacs, for example, is, especially for a beginner like you, a huge waste of time, because it doesn't practice your movement. And right now your movement is honestly probably almost a bigger issue than your aim. But yeah, do you have any questions about that?
About that, no, that's perfect. I need to start doing that, because as you said, my movement is shit. I mean, it's just that's just the that's just what it is, and I didn't know how to fix it. I didn't know what I was doing wrong, and you just gave me what I was doing wrong. W and S, I guess, if I remember pressing S, but W is what's hurting me. So now that I know that, now that I can prove that, yeah, that's what I needed.
When you peek, just ASD, and your crosshair needs to be where the enemy is. Now, because right here, like, honestly, your crosshair placement there was actually fine. Like, I agree, like your crosshair placement was good. Your movement was awkward, but honestly, your movement, like if you, let me check. It's kind of hard to see. Yeah, do you see, look at how you're moving after you start spraying. Do you see how you go a little bit to the left and a little bit back?
Yeah.
Right? And I think you were pressing shift as well. You were like holding down shift and then walking to the side.
I'm getting used to switching between walking and running.
Yeah.
Trying to understand how to do that.
Just get into the habit. When you want to shoot, it needs to be muscle memory. Immediately cancel out your movements by counter strafing and then go for the shot. Right? Because right here, like, you're just spraying like a madman. You don't want to spray like this. First of all, you're aiming a little bit too low. So again, this is what I mentioned earlier about just aiming at the head whenever possible. It's very easy to just go, oh, I missed the headshot anyways, so now I'm just going to aim at their fucking feet and spray them down, right? Like, it's not just your first shot that's accurate. If you have proper movement and you counter strafe properly and you stand still when you begin to shoot, your first 2 to 3 shots are accurate. So even if the crosshair isn't on the enemy's head for the first shot, usually, as long as it's on the head by the second or third shot, you're still going to get a kill. Like, so many of my kills aren't with my first shot. Like, obviously, a lot of them are with just the first shot. But very often, I whiff the first shot, but then the second one connects, or the third one connects to the head, right? Obviously, if the first 3 shots miss, then I start to aim at their dicks, and I just go for, you know, spraying them down. Or you can also go for just burst fire. So I fire 3 shots, and if they don't hit, then I quickly reset, maybe go for a little strafe to screw over their aim, and then I just try again. Although against good players, you usually don't get that chance.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, did you see the breach there again? Right here?
Yep. Okay. I didn't notice that. I did not notice him there.
Do you see how predictable the enemies are? Every single round.
Every single round is so far.
4 rounds, someone pushes there. This game, you could have single-handedly won every single round by buying a shorty, putting a tripwire there. They would go over that shit repeatedly, trust me. Like, you would be drowning in round wins right now and cash. Okay, so now this is another thing that we need to talk about, because you crouched and it kind of screwed you over. Honestly, this is gonna sound a little dumbo, but I actually, like, I don't even use crouch in this game. The only time that I use crouch is when I'm breach and I'm holding C long and I have my ultimate and I hear them all come C long and I ult them all and I have an Odin and I scope in, I crouch and I just mow them down. But in other situations, and I've actually gotten like aces off of that, it's phenomenal. In other situations, it's better to not crouch. Crouching is something that you can do against much higher level players, because they have proper crosshair placement, so by crouching, they need to adjust. In this elo, people aim center mass. As you do.
Like I do.
As you do. You're crouching into your head into their crosshairs. Right? Not only that, so not only are you making it easier for them to aim, you're making it more difficult for yourself to aim. Because if we look at this clip, right, so let's slow this down a little bit, right? Do you see how your first shot went perfectly into the head?
Yeah.
But then let me slow this down even more. So your first shot is a perfect headshot. Okay. Also, I'm kind of stupid. Why am I screen sharing? I totally forgot to send you the link. Actually, whatever. Let's just keep doing it via screen share. I don't think it
The
matters.
link? What
Yeah,
do you-
to the insights.
What is Insights?
The website that I'm using right now. It's
Oh,
okay.
I-
It's okay. It's okay. Just
I thought this was
forget.
like your own. Okay.
No. It's not my own, dude. It's a website. Normally, yeah, like you send someone the link over on the right, and then they can just get on the website and it like syncs up. But whatever, this probably is less glitchy. So let's just do this. But yeah, look, first shot was perfect, and then you crouch, and look where you are now. You're way, way, way too low. Okay, I mean like he's kind of dying, but usually his head is
He's
up
kind
here,
of dying. I know what you mean. Yeah.
right? And also, you know, you're making it easier for them to shoot you. Especially with the pistol, like just don't crouch. Like default, here's the way you need to think about it. Default to not crouching at all, right? And then learn when to crouch later on in life.
Okay.
Okay? Because right now, like you can get to very, very high elo without even having your crouch key bound, honest to God. It's really not necessary. There are situations where it's good, and at a very high level, it can screw people over. But at these ratings, you literally don't need to use them. Also, my fucking vocal, like I'm not used to coaching for this long. My voice is actually starting to die. Like my throat is like
Yeah.
kind of going.
I knew it was a little
going
bit a little
down.
long.
Oh no,
this-
it's fine. But yeah, okay, let's see.
This will
what
be
we
the only
play.
2-hour one. We won't have another one like this. I just needed the basics that we talked about in the first hour first.
Yeah. Oh no, that's this is all good. But yeah, I mean you can't really buy a whole lot here, so this is fine. I think you might have been able to buy light or armor and still have a full buy next round, but I'm not sure. I didn't check. It doesn't matter, to be honest.
I tried something called shoulder peeking right there.
Why would you shoulder peek against them right now? Oh, you think they have an op?
Yeah. I don't think I looked at it. Did I?
I mean, I hope you did. You need to check it
No.
literally every single round. How else are you supposed to know how much money they have? I mean, you
It was-
can know it, but it's just much easier to just
Yeah.
check.
No, I didn't. I don't like I checked. I'm not accustomed to knowing how to check it, or not knowing how, but like, okay, I did. There we go. Okay. But it's so fast. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I just flashed it. I don't know.
Yeah.
There we go.
Who on the enemy team has money to buy an op?
What is it? 42?
45.
45? 45. Okay. Guess that one person right there, Tristan, does.
Right, but does he really want an op with 200 to spare?
At this level, you never know. But technically, no. You're right. No, you usually don't.
Right. And also, they've won the last round, so not only would they have to throw away their weapon, like not only would they have to buy an op, they'd also have to throw away their previous weapon.
Okay.
So chances are, if they're buying, you know, I wouldn't count on them having an op. Like obviously they could just surprise you and shit on you, but you know, you should peek this corner around a rifle, and against a rifle it's better to peek like further away from the corner and just swinging tight. Whereas against an op, you're close and then you swing wide to make them miss their first shot. And yeah, you don't really shoulder peek against rifles, because if you do that, then they're just gonna wall bang the corner and you're half HP.
I thought you'd do it just to bait out where, like, just have them shoot so
don't-
you at least know they're there, or
You don't need to do that because you can just use your camera for that.
gotcha. Okay.
Do you see how you're hesitating? Like you're very indecisive. Like you're kind of
I'm not
chilling
confident.
here.
I have no idea how to play the game.
Walking
that's
towards
that's why
the
I'm
door.
like I just don't know what I can and can't do, and
want
that's my
to-
problem right now.
You want to gain some ground on this map right now. You guys are kind of stuck in spawn and you have literally zero map control, which isn't super hot. So step one is deciding where you actually want to go,
Okay.
right? Let's say you want to go C. If you want to go C, the first area that you need to check is you stand right here and you walk to the left in order to check through the slit of these doors, right? To see if someone is in the window. And then you push up to the door and then you check this room. You check behind the little box and then you check the left side, right? Once you're in that room, you strafe like this and you check down the corridor to see if someone is on C, right? And then after that, you have options, right? You can use your cage, right? You haven't used your abilities yet. You can use your cage to throw it like on the right side, right here, if you can see that.
Yeah, I see it.
right? And then you can check like all of these left spots one by one, right? And kind of do a circle around the point, because this area here is blocked off, so you don't need to worry about people shooting you from 2 directions. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah.
But you need to come up, like this is where, honestly, where it could be very useful for you to just go into a custom game, open up the map, and just kind of figure out how you want to approach each point. Which corners you need to check, in which situations using your abilities might make it easier, right? So for example, when you go into this room, you can use your tripwire on the window. Because that way, so you put your tripwire here, you put your cyber cage over here, you can check the spot, and if someone comes from window from the flank, right? Or you can even put another one like back here. So it's literally impossible for someone to go in there without getting themselves noticed. So you can check the spot without having to worry about anyone coming in from behind, right? Or you can even do the pro gamer move and you can check the spot with your camera first, just to be 100% extra sure, right? So
Can
do
you
see
tell when your thing gets destroyed?
Which thing?
Your tripwire. Like even if they don't walk over it, when they shoot it instead of walking on it, can you tell when it gets destroyed?
I'm pretty sure you can, yes.
Okay.
Like he says tripwire is destroyed and then you see it on the screen.
Gotcha.
But I'm not a cipher man, so I'm only saying that with 90% confidence. But yeah, like honestly, you just didn't really have a plan to execute. Like,
No.
you really just
No,
need
I
to
agree.
go into a custom game and then figure out how you want to approach all of these points properly.
Yeah, I fully agree. Like I can tell you, I have no idea how to attack these. I don't know what I can and can't do. I'm not, I'm too worried about what they're doing, what team is doing, just all kinds of stuff. I just don't know. And I guess some of that comes with time, of course, just learning how to play the game first. Like you said, map knowledge, get into a custom game, just walking around, know what you want to do. But you're gonna notice that a lot. A lot of these rounds, I just don't know. Yeah. The next video is probably a little better than this, but yeah, this one's.
I mean, the next video is probably gonna be for another time, because I think this video is like 20 minutes long and we have like 17 minutes left.
Oh yeah.
So yeah.
I mean, we could probably end at the time or even sooner, because what you're giving me now is just gonna be it's the same thing here. Like
yeah.
it's gonna the whole game's gonna follow the same what we talked about in the first 2-3 minutes of it. So
I do like this play though. I do have to commend you. What did you guys buy? I'm a little confused. Why do you have a Spectre?
let's go past it. I don't know.
He literally has 9,000 almost.
I don't know. I told you it was bad. I don't know. That's why economy was the first question.
Yeah, okay. But
Yeah, it's just, I know. For going forward, I know now.
Yeah.
But yeah.
on a positive note, though, I really like you checking your teams back here. Like this is very, very good. Like just checking behind. Also, the way that you peek the corner is good, right? So you peek it fast. Like look, you go whoosh, and then you see them, and then you shoot. Right? Like that's how it should be. Okay, like this was a good peek. And this is how you should hold angles as well, right? You asked earlier how to hold angles. Imagine you were on defense. Imagine she was an attacker, because she essentially is an attacker right now, and you're holding this corner right here. This is exactly how you're supposed to peek it. Okay?
Okay, gotcha.
So yeah, again, ideally you should just put the tripwire behind you, but you know. But again, good. Checking the back, very nice. See, that was good. The problem is you stopped strafing like preemptively. So, do you see how you like started aiming before you have actually kept track of the enemy?
Okay.
Right? So you want to make sure, like the order is, obviously when you get good, this is going to become ridiculously fast. But at the start, it's going to be slow. You want to hold D, and you don't counter strafe until you've actually fully cognitively processed the enemy there. But here, you did what's called a pre-fire. You peeked knowing, or like just predicting that someone was going to be there, and you pre-fired that spot, right? But look at, I'm gonna put this in slow motion again. Look at where your crosshair is when you pre-fire.
Like right to his left, or his right, I guess.
So you run to the right, and you haven't fully processed him yet. And do you see how, like, no offense, right? No offense, but your reaction time isn't that good, because there's literally one frame. Yeah, right here. Look how immediately when you see him, the same frame you see him, do you see how you immediately start scoping in and to counter strafe? Right? So this tells me that you started pre-firing. You did not actually see him. You just thought, ooh, someone is here. I'm just gonna shoot and then hope that it's going to land. And that's why you're aiming over here, because you were pre-firing this corner, but he's there. But the problem is you're not ready to shoot, but you already stopped walking. So now he has an easy shot while you still need to move your mouse. And that puts you at a disadvantage, because it's very easy for him to land shots when you're standing still. You want to stay in motion until you can fire. You don't want to stand still without being able to pretty much immediately left click right after.
Okay.
Okay? Even if it means that you're gonna like keep walking after, like when you walk around a corner, hold down the movement keys until you are 100% ready to shoot. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah. And that can fix a lot of my issues right now. Yeah.
Like a lot of players, they tend to walk around the corner and then they try to stop walking as soon as possible, right? So if you're peeking this corner, they like walk to the right and then they stop like right here, right next to the corner, right? But you shouldn't do that, especially at the start. Even if you need to like keep walking and you stop over here, right? At least you stop when you are ready to shoot, okay?
Gives you a much better chance to hit your shot.
Exactly, yeah. Stay in motion until you can headshot them. See, again, this is bad. Look at how... Oh, this is your teammate. I'm so dumb.
Yeah, this is... Yeah. Well, I mean, it's still with them,
yeah,
but...
Yeah, okay. Yeah. But, yeah, you know, he didn't pay me, so I'm gonna ignore him.
He didn't pay me.
I need some of that good old German pragmatism. Okay, what do we buy this round? So, yeah, your team can buy, you should just full buy. I mean, one of your teammates can't buy, but that's, you know, tough shit. Now, another thing regarding Vandal versus Phantom. So the Phantom is technically better, but only in most situations. There are certain situations where you kind of need to play with a Vandal. So as you reach higher levels of play, you'll actually learn to use each weapon situationally. For example, if you want to go A short, you should probably go with a Phantom, because all of those engagements are very close range. But if you want to go C, you know, you kind of want a Vandal, because otherwise you're just going to get shit on by someone else who is also playing C, but they have a Vandal. Yeah. So it is also kind of situational, but again, right now, since you're, like, I'm just a little worried. I just don't want the Phantom to reinforce bad habits that you have, because spraying works a lot better with the Phantom, but I don't want you to get into the habit of just crouching all the time and trying to spray people down. Because you can get a lot of cheap kills with it, but again, it just doesn't work against good players, right? So look at this peak. You're making, all, like, honestly, I think this is the last thing that we're looking at, because this summarizes it all perfectly. So utility is non-present, right? You're not using any of your utility. Look how you peak. Do you see how you were walking forward again?
Yep.
Right? And look at what you do when you peak. Okay, so we're gonna look at this in slow motion. There we go. So first your movement, you're holding down W, you're holding down W, you're holding down W. And then look again how you stop walking before you have fully visually processed that there's an enemy, right? So you stop walking and then you immediately crouch. And because you stopped walking and you stopped firing before you actually process the enemy in your brain, your shots are going all over the place because you need to actually adjust. Does that make sense?
Okay. It does.
So make sure that you only hold A or D while peeking. Don't counter strafe until you know where the enemy is. Because right here, look at how soon you shoot as well. Right? So obviously, ideally, you want to make sure that your first shot lands on the enemy because that's the most accurate. But right here, I think you fired 3 or 4 shots before your crosshair was even on the enemy.
Yeah, panicking.
1, 2, 3, 4, right? Your fourth shots was kind of on him, right? This is another thing that's really good in like the practice drill that I showed you, because you only shoot there when you're actually on the target. So get into that rhythm. Strafe, counter strafe, recognize the target, counter strafe, flick, shoot. That's kind of the order to look at things at. But yeah, I guess we can look at the rest of this. I mean, again, right there you picked by pressing W, which isn't super hot. Okay, you're checking your team's flank. I like this. Again, did you see how you were walking like this around the corner instead of perpendicular to it? Right? Really bad habit. You need to get rid of that. And I mean, yeah, right there you're just slow walking and oh damn, if only we had a tripwire. But again, I'm kind of a broken record at this point.
It needs to keep being said because I need to get it into my mind, because in those moments that are like hot, I need to be thinking to myself, use these things before the round. Use these. Yeah, there's an X.
Yeah, I mean the ultimate is good. Honestly, I like the ultimate. It's a 3v3, so it helps your team a lot. That was nice. See, look, like it's like what a War Owl does, like his owl vision, where he always has like in his matchmaking academy, he always has like one clip, like that shot was your clip, you know, that was
the one thing, yeah.
Yeah, or when you were holding the flank on C and you killed the jet, that was also pretty nice. But yes.
Yeah, we can stop here. Yeah, the rest of the video.
Feeling? What questions do we have?
I don't have any right now. You've answered everything that I've had so far. I think your first Valorant coaching session was great. I also have something of a surprise for you. Okay. I got one Valorant coaching session before we had ours.
Ooh,
I got one.
How did that go?
So I got the coaching session from somebody who is supposedly Valorant ranked. Showed me his stuff, all everything. It's $10 for an hour. He sat down. He watched some gameplay and stuff like this. So his things were this: I need to be jiggle peeking all the time. I don't need to worry about using most of my utility at this level. Where's the document at? He also believes that I should only play one character and just stick with that one for a while. And he also says that missing shots is fine as long as you just hit somewhere in the body.
Okay, so okay, read the first one. I'm gonna go through them one by one. Can you read the first thing again?
I can't find the notepad that I wrote down like I do yours. I did the same with his as well.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because they just want to comment on them.
It's gonna. Is this? No, this is yours. Okay, no, I don't know what I've done with it.
Okay, so the first one was like to always jiggle peek, right?
Yeah. Just sit there in the open.
So his advice, so the advice that he gave you wasn't technically incorrect, but he's kind of skipping steps. Like he's not giving you get good advice. He's getting you get from iron to bronze advice, essentially. Okay. So always jiggle peeking. If you were to implement that, yes, it would have a positive impact. But it's obviously that you understand how to jiggle peek, why to jiggle peek. Because if you understand it properly, then you'll also know when not to apply it. Right? So yes, ideally most of the time you want to jiggle peek, but you also want to keep in mind that you want to be open to the idea that there are situations where jiggle peeking might not be the smartest of ideas. Okay, so yeah, I kind of agree with this advice. It's just a little like short-sighted, I guess. The second thing was utility, right?
Yes.
So I agree that utility isn't the reason why you're on this rating. Like you can get, to probably to like at least platinum off of just mechanics alone, if not even higher, without using any of your abilities, right? The problem is, utility is kind of a pretty important part of the game, so you might as well practice it while you're playing the game, right? You could treat your games right now like just aim training scenarios, but at least having a fundamental understanding of utility allows your games to be more consistent, which is very good for your mindset. Because if you only focus on your mechanics are intrinsically inconsistent. So if you only focus on them, the game can become very frustrating because it'll feel like every single round win or loss depends on only one thing, whether you land your shots. But if you also have a fundamental understanding of abilities, it'll mean that even when you don't land your shots, you're still going to be useful, which will have a very positive impact on just your mindset in the game overall. Because it's not like, you're just going to end up blaming your aim every single round. So I agree, utility isn't exactly the super highest priority thing at this rating. Let's be real. You can just out-frag people here. It's not like, but it's also free kills, like you could have gotten so many literal free kills. And the reality is, the better your opponents, the better the practice. So if your utility usage can carry you to gold, then you can practice your mechanics against gold players. And that is already going to make a huge difference, because those people actually kind of put you on your toes and they force you to go for headshots, because you can't just spray them down. You're going to be dead long before them.
Yeah.
Number 3, only focus on one character. Yeah, I agree with that. The reason for that is that you want to focus on fundamentals right now. And playing multiple characters can make that kind of complicated. You can have playing 2 characters is honestly fine. I don't think it's the end of the world, but it is true that you don't just want to randomly switch to a new hero every single round. And then the last thing, what was the last thing he said? I think it was just you only need mechanics to get out of iron.
He thought just going out and getting frags was the way to go.
Yes and no. If you're good mechanically, then you can play like that, yes. And it is the only thing that's needed. Like, as I mentioned earlier, you pretty much only need mechanics at this level to get. This isn't like Overwatch. Like, in Overwatch, the only place where mechanics are, like, really holding people back are, like, the very, very low ratings. By the time someone gets to Plat or Diamond, their mechanics are already at a very good level. Or not very good level, but good enough to climb to the highest ranks, right? Whereas in Valorant, aim is, like, a much, much bigger part of the game compared to Overwatch. So it is true that you can solo carry your way off of just aim, but it's important to understand that there's like a lot more complexity to the game. So yeah, like focusing, and honestly most of what we talked about was mechanics, like knowing how to peek, knowing how to hold stuff. But what's the point in having good mechanics when you buy a fucking Spectre against a team that full buys, even though you have money to full buy as well? You can have an aimbot, you're still going to lose the duel against a Vandal if you don't know how to buy the right weapon in each situation, right? So those things are also important.
Okay.
Okay.
It's definitely good that you agree with him. I'm glad his advice was good. Now, the difference between your session and his session is just, you should do that. You should do that. You should do that. And that's it. There's no explanation. There's no why. There's no... where did this come from? Who does that? Does God do this himself? Does Shroud? Like, there's nothing. There's no how do I do this? Just you should do that. You should do that. Mm-hmm. There's no he doesn't. He never gave me like the how, pretty much like you do. The session was not. It was like he just kind of put himself out there and said, yeah, I can coach, and then I can just tell you what you need to do, and that's it. And I guess for $10, I guess is what you can do. I guess it's just for $10 you can do, but you don't feel like you got something from him. If I was Valorant level and he could just say you should do that, then maybe that would work. But somebody who doesn't have an understanding of the game, as I explained to him in the beginning, it was almost impersonal. Like, it just didn't matter to him. I didn't get anything from it.
That's kind of unfortunate to hear, but I'm glad that this could be more insightful at least.
Why do you say it's unfortunate?
It's like $10 kind of down the drain. But yeah, it's okay. It's okay. Yeah,
just know that your session was better. Your session is a lot more consistent and a lot more. Even though like you said, this is your first one, you don't really have a structure to it. It's a lot more consistent.
I do appreciate it. I would send you the link to review, but I don't actually have that set up for Valorant yet. So yeah. I'll take that as your review, I guess.
Yeah, that'll be it. Yeah.
I also don't have follow-up sessions for Valorant yet, so I guess you can just use the regular one in case you want to follow up.
That's what I'm planning to do.
I need to figure that stuff out. If you have any questions, Coach Pass still applies. Just send me a DM. Lastly, are you fine with me uploading this session?
Yes.
Okay, then I have my first Valorant session. I'm gonna post it on the Reddits, and they're gonna be like, "Oh Jesus Christ, dude, how much does this guy charge?" And then they go to the website, and they'll be like, "Oh Jesus Christ, dude, what the fuck?" And they're gonna flame me, but it's okay. It's Reddit.
Well, how? I'm fine with you using it, but
yeah.
We didn't even get to do the whole video, so is that going to be a good thing? You can use my
other
video if you want to
like. It's don't worry about it. Like, trust me, it's gonna be fine. Because in the end, it's not like, as you said yourself. Do you really think watching the remaining rounds of that match would have granted any new insights? Exactly.
No, not even a little bit.
So yeah, but yeah, I guess it's been a productive session.
I agree.
And
I hope that this carries over. I'm gonna go practice right now. So
sounds like a plan. Again, like, it's going to take a very long time. especially getting the mechanics
Oh, I
down.
know.
But if you
Oh,
get
I
those,
know.
if you get those 30 minutes of the practice range down each day, if you are more mindful of how to peak, and where to peak and when to peak, it's going to make a difference. And I mean, the game is going to go down like tomorrow. So, but once the game,
Oh, is it really?
yeah, the beta stops on the 28th, and then the game comes out June 2nd.
I thought I would end. I thought they would stop it on a Sunday. Not.
Oh, I don't know. I just know it's the 28th.
It comes out.
Like
Oh,
it ends
okay.
on the 28th, but I don't know what time. Is that like 0 o'clock, like midnight, or is it
Oh, yeah, I don't know.
23? Like I don't know exactly.
Should I even keep playing?
I mean, why not?
Hey.
You know, might as well get some hours in, you know, and then you have a nice break. You know, you can mentally reset, and then you can properly grind it out when the game comes out.
You know they're not coming out with comp the first day, right?
Yeah, but you know, who cares? Like, if comp isn't out, then unranked is pretty much comp. Like, what's the difference? Unranked still has MMR, so, and also your
People don't care
right, but
at my level.
your unranked MMR is going to transfer to your like first placement games.
Yeah.
So if you get good in unrated, you know, chances are you might just place, you know, silver out of the get-go, or bronze at least.
Okay.
So I would still take it serious, and honestly, you can always improve. And you know, as he and I mentioned, mechanics are very important in this game. So even just using that time to get your mechanics up to snuff, like if you can get like on hard mode, I think a good goal for you to aim for right now. Actually, honestly, I don't think you're gonna be able to consistently get like any kills on hard mode.
No, I can't. I was
Yeah,
just about to say. I mean,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
great, but I can't hit anything. I
Yeah,
barely
I don't
hitting
think.
medium.
Yeah, I think like your goal really should be, you know, on medium. If you can get like 15 to 20 on medium, you know, I think that would be a very good start. And then, you know, we can kind of move from there. Again, I could give you more accurate expectations for what to get in the practice range, but I honestly just don't have a reference, you know, that I can use.
Yeah, that's fine. I need to start. I mean, I'm just barely getting 50 to 20, hitting them standing still on medium. So once that changes to more consistently being higher, then I can start incorporating the moving. But I need to first start hitting them as they pop up on medium.
Yeah,
I know that sounds
I would-
terrible,
I would,
but
again, like
yeah.
honestly, just set it to easy and just practice the movement from the get-go. Like it's really one thing.
Okay.
They're very interconnected. So I wouldn't, you know, like start by standing still and then incorporate movement. You really want to incorporate movement from the get-go. Like they need to be in sync with each other at all times. Movement is ridiculously important in this game.
Okay. I can do that. Thank you
Okay,
so much.
good.
As these sessions go, your sessions are always amazing. We'll be getting another one in a week. Well, I might wait a little longer than a week because since the game's gonna end and then restart,
Oh
I may give myself more
yeah.
time.
No, that makes a lot of sense actually.
Yeah.
But
So maybe about 2 weeks or so, just so I can have some time to actually practice what you gave me. But whenever it's a week or two into the game, you expect another one, and then yeah, we'll go from there.
sounds good. Then I guess I wish you the best of luck.
Definitely. Thank you again.
Okay, have a good one. See ya.
Too. Bye.